Later this week, The Source will be looking at policing here in Niagara. As a prelude to that program, we welcome Ken Gansel, who has recently retired from the Niagara Regional Police Services Board. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your retirement, first of all.
Second time.
Second time. You have a vast experience. Looking at your resume, a lot of very impressive credentials. You've worked for the ministry. You developed pretty much the entire IT system here in Niagara for the police services.
22 years.
Tell me about your roles, the different roles that you've played.
Well, if I go back to my start in policing, which I will always say was a bit of an accident, the Ottawa Police Service back in 1975 was looking for a police photographer. And I applied for the job and was successfully getting it. And after spending about 2 years, and as the new person on the block, or the rookie, got assigned to everything you really wouldn't want to go to. Deaths, horrific car accidents, etc. And I said to myself, I didn't really want to do this for my life or my career. Moved to Niagara, was very successful in doing some early real estate work down here for about a year. And got a call from the Niagara Regional Police Force at the time, it was the name, and they were looking for somebody to head up the planning and research area of the service. They were putting in a radio system. I'm an licensed amateur radio operator, and they had gotten a, quote, tip from Ottawa that I was in town. And long story short, 22 and a half years later, was the manager of the IT for the Niagara Regional Police Service, was instrumental in all the mobile workstations, computer-aided dispatch records, everything that is there today, and was also the first police service in Canada on the internet.
You, through all of this, were always a civilian, never a police officer, correct?
That is correct, yes.
With the Police Services Board, what does a police board do exactly?
Well, I think that's an important question, and I think it's a mystery to a lot of people because they don't really understand what our function is. First of all, we're not uniform, we don't carry guns, we're not part of the frontline contingent of policing, that's not our role. Our role is basically to be the community sounding board for the police service. So the chief of police and the two deputies are our only employees. So the chief reports directly to the board, as the deputies. The board as such cannot, as one person, such as myself as the previous chair, say to the chief, I want you to put radar on the street. The board collectively could say to the chief at a meeting, we've heard some complaints about traffic and these issues, and we really think that you might want to take some time to look at some of the traffic issues. That's as far as we can go. We cannot direct or interfere in any police operations whatsoever.
You can make recommendations? We
can make recommendations. The police board has about 50 different bylaws, and these bylaws are all tied into the Police Services Act. I brought a copy just so that you get a sense of the size of this document. It talks about investigative units, it talks about having intelligence-led policing, it talks about community safety initiatives, and the board passes bylaws that set directives for the chief for him to implement with the manpower of the police service to comply with those bylaws.
What other types of people sit on that board? Some of the councillors from Niagara Regional Council are on that board.
It is prescriptive as to what is there. It's a 7-person board. There are 3 regional councillors, and they are elected by regional council, I believe, at their first meeting of a new term. So they sit for a 4-year period. They also solicit a public member, like they solicit a person off the street, as I like to refer to it, who is not a politician. And he or she is interviewed by regional council and appointed. And then the province picks 3. And the province will pick 3 members. I was a provincial appointee. And you normally serve for a total of 8 years. So usually a 2-year term and 2 3-year terms. Fairly rare that you go past 8 years, but it's not written in stone. But the province has set some guidelines that they want to try to have some turnover in their police board appointees. And I think that's good. I don't believe in being on something as a lifetime appointment.
When a new government comes in, do they sometimes shuffle those members on those boards?
I have not seen anyone, quote, yanked out in the middle of their term. And I mean, let's be realistic here. They are, quote, provincial appointees. So there will be a sort of small p political component to that. What the province is appointing are the people that have the right skill sets. And I'll use Tara McKendrick, who is our one and only female appointee to the board from the province. She's the executive director of Canadian Mental Health Association here in Niagara. And the province, probably 4 years ago, appointed Tara, and they also appointed her peers to other boards. I believe there's another Canadian mental health person on Peterborough. I think there's one in Southwest Ontario. The province and policing recognize that there's some issues in the mental health area that are best addressed by mental health professionals and not by police.
There's a lot of call these days, a lot of controversy. People are constantly saying we need to defund police forces. If that were to happen here in an area like Niagara, what would be the first thing to be defunded? What would go?
Salaries do represent the largest contingent of the budget. So you would say, well, we're going to have to reduce staff. Well, we just went through a process for 2020 in this budget of adding 40 new police officers. They've been hired, they're in the process of being trained. I won't see their graduation, but they will be graduating sometime in late fall, and they will be on the road. They were not hired at a whim, and this is, again, all public record. This is all done at part of the budget presentation at Regional Council. The police service went through a very lengthy study as to how many men and women are required to adequately and effectively police this region, and they came up with a number, and we discovered that we were short, and the 40 officer was a start in trying to have the adequate number of officers on the road in order to provide the police services that we expect. So when you call 911, you expect someone to show up. I very much doubt if the public would tolerate someone saying, well, unfortunately we defunded, so we're known to answer calls after midnight.
You mentioned men and women. With these 40 new hires, was there an effort also to show some diversity amongst those hires?
There is, and having gone to most of the graduating classes in the 8 years that I was on the board, that diverse mix has been there. But I can also tell you that a lot of police services, not just in Niagara, face the issues of recruiting. Policing is not looked at a job that a young person who is used to getting everything on Facebook or an app is something they wish to pursue. It has its risks. Sometimes you don't walk into what I call a welcoming experience, and some of them find that can be quite intimidating.
It's a difficult job, let's face it. Extremely
difficult, and there's a high risk to it. And I will be the first one to commend our men and women that are out there doing that job. It is a tough job. They're professional. They know what they're doing. And they have carried that out during a pandemic with stellar colors. And again, I can't thank enough the senior management staff, such as the chief and the 2 deputies, and their leadership during COVID-19 and their leadership over the years.
Thank you very much for joining The Source today, Ken. It's been a pleasure.